Hi there! I know what you're thinking. This is actually a video where we're going to get to go ahead and see my beautiful face. I'm sorry I have to put you through this. Anyway, today what we're going to be talking about is the microscope, how to go ahead and focus it, as well as the different parts and what they do. And finally, to go ahead and summarize things up, we'll be taking a look at how to calculate the total amount of focus for each lens we'll be using in the microscope. Let's go ahead and get started. So the parts and function of our microscopes. So what you see here are the microscopes that we're currently going to be using for today and throughout the year. So let's go ahead and go over a few parts of the microscope that you're going to have to be familiar with. Now, I can't really see where or what I'm doing right now in the video, so just bear with me and we'll see if we can get through all this. So the first thing that you need to know is up top right here, this is called the eyepiece. So the eyepiece, very simple, it's what we go ahead and look through to see whatever it is that we're looking at under the microscope. Now this is important. The eyepiece has a magnification of 10. So instantly, whatever we're looking at is going to be magnified by 10. Up next, we have the body tube. So the body tube is this piece right here, which goes ahead and connects the eyepiece to the rest of our microscope. So as we continue down, what you'll see right here, this piece that can go ahead and rotate a little bit, is called our nose piece. So the nose piece is where you can find all of the lenses, or the different lenses we'll be using. Now there are three primary lenses that we're going to be using, at least on these scopes. The first lens is the low power or scanning power. So the scanning power is the red lens. It's denoted by a red band, and that has a magnification of 4. The next one up is our mid or low power, if you're looking at it like that, is our mid power. So the mid power is denoted by a yellow band, and the mid power has a magnification of 10. And finally, we have our big boy here. We have our high power. So high power has a little blue band on the side of it and has a magnification of 40. So whatever we look at through that lens is going to be magnified 40 times what it would normally look like. So let's keep going and talk about some of the other parts that you're going to need to know for our microscope. So on the side here, what this is called is the arm. So the arm is what you use to go ahead and hold the microscope. So you would go ahead, hang on to it, and pick it up like this. Now this isn't safe. What we're going to go ahead and do next is talk about the base. The base can be found down here at the bottom. And the base is where you should go ahead and put your other hand when you're holding a microscope. So continuing through our parts of the microscope, down here at the bottom with the base, we have the light source. In this case, it's a wonderful little lamp. You go ahead, hit the button. We have light. Wonderful. Now underneath this thing right here, this is called our stage. The stage is where you go ahead and put your slides. Now, in addition to what we have on the stage, I'm just going to move this out of the way for a second, we have this thing called a stage clip. So a stage clip is this thing right here. Kind of looks like a little crab claw. So what you do to go ahead and put a slide in is you pull back the claw, you put your slide in, and then you release the claw. And as you can see, or maybe not, it goes ahead and holds the slide right there. So your stage clip holds the slide in place. So that way you don't have to worry about it. Now underneath the stage, we have this little thing called a diaphragm. Now a diaphragm has this little lever right here. It's also called an iris. Now much like the iris in your eye, what this does is goes ahead and allows light to come through. And depending on where you have it set, that's going to determine how much light comes through the microscope. So it's overall going to change the amount of light that you see when you're looking at your specimen. Continuing with this, we just have a few more parts to go over. The next part are the adjustment knobs. So we have two of them. We have the large one and the small one. The large knob is called the coarse adjustment knob, and there's one of these on each side of the microscope. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this, and as you can see, it causes the stage to move up and down. You're going to use this to focus whenever you're looking at something through a microscope. Now, the other knob is known as the fine adjustment knob. So the fine adjustment knob is this tiny one right here. And what it does is also moves the stage, but it only does so a little bit. Now, there are some powers you need to be aware of with these. Namely, the coarse adjustment knob, you only use this on the red lens, the lowest power we have. When you start moving up to the yellow and blue bands, only use your fine adjustment knob. The reason for this is I'll explain it when we talk about focusing, but namely you don't want to go ahead and accidentally break your slide. Some of these slides are a little expensive. And the last thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about is these two knobs right here on the side. So these go ahead and move your stage. As you can see, sometimes the stage might not be exactly where it needs to be. So what we have are these two knobs. The top one right here will go ahead and move your stage forwards and backwards. You can use this to position whatever you're looking at is underneath the lens. And the bottom one here, I'll go ahead and rotate the scope. The bottom lens, or the bottom knob will go ahead and move the slide left and right. Now what that's going to do is this will allow you to get your specimen in the correct positioning so you can go ahead and focus on it. So speaking of focusing, let's go ahead and talk about how to focus a microscope. So when focusing a microscope, here's what we need to keep in mind. Step number one, make sure your microscope is plugged in. We have that taken care of. Step number two, you can turn on your light source. Step number three, go ahead and put your slide into the microscope. So we've got ourselves a little slide here. I'm going to pull back our stage clip. I'm going to go ahead and put our slide right in there, nestle it in nice and tight, and then let go of the stage clip. Now when you have this done correctly, it should look something like this. I'm not quite sure if you can see that, and I'm sorry if you can't. But from here, what we're going to go ahead and do is start to move our slide around and start to get it into focus. So step number one, what this is going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this here just a bit. Let's go ahead, move our lens to the lowest power we have, the red. Then you're going to look through your scope, look through the eyepiece. Now, you are going to go ahead and start off with the slide at the lowest position. And make sure you have as much light as you need with the diaphragm adjusted as you need to. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention, at the bottom here there's a little dial that will go ahead and adjust how much light you have coming through. So there we go, that's good for me. Up next, what you need to do is adjust your stage so you can go ahead and see whatever it is you want to look at onto the scope and make sure that is not only on top of the light but underneath your lens as well. So we're going to start off with the coarse adjustment knob all the way at the bottom. So this stage should be as far away from the lens as possible. Next, we're going to go ahead and look through at our specimen and slowly rotate the coarse adjustment knob back until what we see comes into focus. Now, while you're going through this, you may see a little arrow in your eyepiece. Whatever is at the tip of the arrow, when you go to the next magnification, is where it's going to zoom in at. So I'm going to go ahead and jump up to our next power. So that was pretty good. So this was kind of where I needed it to be, but I need to make a few adjustments. So using the top knob down here underneath the stage, I'll go ahead and adjust it up and down, and the bottom one to adjust it left and right. Now, if this is a little bit blurry for you, use the fine adjustment knob, this tiny guy down here, to go ahead and adjust it until it comes into focus. Beautiful. Now once you have that taken care of, you can move up to the highest power. Now remember, anytime you go past the lowest power on the microscope, you need to only use the fine adjustment knob. If you use anything more than that, you run the risk of potentially cracking your slide, or worst case scenario, cracking the lens of your scope. If you do that, it's pretty expensive to repair, and we don't want that. Alright, that's going to go ahead and do it for me right now. Let's go ahead and talk about the last bit of stuff we have to, and let's get out of here. So how to focus the microscope. Now we went over this before, so I'll just put the steps up again. Feel free to go ahead and pause the video here so you can write them down. But we kind of went over all this in how this looks. So, pause the video, and use this time to copy these steps down if you need to. Okay, let's go ahead and calculate how you get the total magnification for a lens. So, like we said before, we know the eyepiece is always 10. And our objective lenses, or in this case, the scanning power is 4, the low power is 10, and the high power is 40. So how we can figure out the total magnification is by multiplying the eyepiece's power by the objective lens's power. So for our scanning power, we would go ahead and take 10, multiply that by 4, and that would give us a total magnification of 40. For the low power, we have an eyepiece of 10 and an objective lens of 10. So 10 times 10 would give us 100. And finally, for high power, we have 10 for the eyepiece and 40 for the objective lens. So we go ahead and multiply that together, and that gives us a total magnification of 400. So with this, that goes ahead and closes up shop on what we're going to be talking about for how to use a microscope as well as the different parts. Now, if you went ahead and missed anything or you'd like to review it, please make sure you go back and pause the video or watch it again if there was something you missed. So, with that out of the way, if you have any questions, make sure you go ahead and contact your instructor. They'll point you in the right direction. And until next time, you all take care and have a good one. See ya.